All right, take two. So, I hope I'm live. Just kind of waiting for my YouTube stream to buffer here, and it looks like I am live again. All right. So, apparently my internet got cut out in the middle of my live stream. Now, my internet was fine for several months. You may recall last year I had my internet cut 6 of 7 podcasts, and then I made a big rant. I flipped people off. I used the F word a lot. And then after that, for several months, it stopped. My internet was fine. And about a week ago, I started losing the internet, and now it's been happening once every couple days. So I don't know, is it a coincidence that it just went out during my live stream this time? You know, just as I start talking about the New Zealand shooting, which was clearly fake. And so yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been a while, so I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, but I mean, remember yesterday, Zach's live stream, like a half hour into it, he's just doing his normal live stream, and then suddenly pornography starts playing. Well, in Gematria, the word porno equals 330, and that live stream was on the date 330. So what a funny day for a porno to start playing on his channel. And yeah, I mean, you know, clearly this stuff is facing censorship. My first YouTube channel was deleted. My website was taken offline in January for a copyright claim because of a photo I used from a news source. This is what we're dealing with, guys. And all we can do is try to spread the truth. And I'll admit, you know, it kind of sucks the wind out of you every time that happens, where it's like, geez, you know, all this extra work I got to go through now to try to spread the truth, but I realize that's the point. So I'm not going to let it discourage me. I'm just going to finish this video as if nothing ever happened, all right? Now, in the first half of this video, towards the end, I started talking about this story involving a cruise ship in Norway. The Viking Sky ran into problems on a date with numerology of 46. Norway equals 66, matching the date's full numerology. And it was 66 days after the anniversary of Harold V, which equals 66, taking the throne in 1991. Now, another interesting thing about the number 66 is that it's the reduction value of the word 33. This story comes to us from Norway, which equals 33. Using prime numbers, Norway also equals 333. And this ship had a problem off of the coast of Molde, Norway, which, when abbreviated, equals 33. The Prime Minister of Norway is fat chick Erna Solberg. The name Solberg equals 33. And on the date of this incident, she was born on February 24th, 1961, meaning that on this date, she was 3,030 weeks and 3 days old. The name Erna Solberg equals 116 and 53. This was a news story about the Viking Sky, which sums to 116 and 53 reverse. Now, as I always say when we have stories from international waters, or land for that matter, you always want to measure to that nation's national holiday. In this case, it's Norwegian Constitution Day, which is on May 17th. This story falls 10 months and 8 days after May 17th, or 54 days before the next May 17th. MV Viking Sky, the name of this ship, sums to 108 and 54. Speaking of the 108, this ship had engine failures exactly 108 weeks after its own maiden voyage, which was on February 25th of 2017. Now notice how Viking Sky equals 1275 in Jewish Gematria. This number might stand out to some of you. This is the Jewish Gematria of Jesus Christ, 1275. Now, if you remember from the first half of this video, Jesus equals 985. On the date of this story, look how old Harold V was, born on 2/21, 1937, making him 985 months old. He turned 985 months old earlier that week. Using trigonal gematria, the phrase eclipse sacrifice equals 985. That's what Jesus was. In ordinal, eclipse sacrifice equals 142, and this event occurred 14 weeks and 2 days before the next total solar eclipse. Crucifixion of Jesus Christ equals 123 and 147 in reduction. Harold V equals 123 in reverse, and he had been king for 1,470 weeks on the date of this Jesus-killing ritual. I also mentioned how eclipse crucifixion code equals 227, just like Jesus' crucifixion. And if you measure from the Viking skies' maiden voyage to the date of the incident, it was 2 years and 27 days. All right. So I'm glad to see that some of you have come back and checked out the second part of this video. You know, it's always unfortunate because when my stream got cut, there were over 50 people watching. And, you know, then it gets cut and then people don't check back. And now there's only 25. So, once again, fuck you, YouTube. Fuck you for censoring my work, which is exposing exactly what the fuck you're doing. Fucking losers. Pieces of shit running this world. Absolute pure pieces of garbage. Zionist scum. You know, this feels really good. Fuck you, Zionist pieces of motherfucking scum shitbags. All right. I'm not really that angry today. You know, it's a pretty nice day out. It's almost April. The weather's getting warmer. But true evil deserves to be called out. So, yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some film numerology. Now, I always knew that there was this strange coincidence with the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey and the monolith building that right next to the World Trade Center in the 2001 9/11 attacks. But I want to talk about the numerology of this. Of course, this was all done by the numbers as well. And again, this is just more evidence to the grand conspiracy that Hollywood is in bed with Washington, D.C., the government, our film industry, all one and the same, programming us predictively. And this film, 2001: A Space Odyssey, I finally watched this movie last weekend, and I kind of regret having gone so long without watching it. However, with what the movie was trying to communicate, I think it actually was pretty good timing for me to watch it, since it's kind of in line with what I've been studying lately and what I think reality might be, but we'll get to that towards the end of this post. You know, the fact that this movie came out in 1968 is amazing. I mean, the cinematography in the film is wonderful. It's just a great film. Definitely one of the best movies of all time, I'd say. But what this film was really doing on a darker scale is, again, predictive programming for September 11th. And a lot of people frame Stanley Kubrick as some type of hero who was out to warn us of the dangers of Hollywood and the people running the world. I don't know if that's true or if it's more something to do with or if Stanley Kubrick was actually part of the gang, right? And he had this knowledge and he was just playing his role. I don't really know, but I would guess the latter. But whatever, we'll look at the numerology and figure this out. So the first thing I want to point out is the gematria of the name Kubrick, the director of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Using prime numbers, Kubrick sums to 227. Again, 22 divided by 7 equals 3.14. And using Jewish gematria, Kubrick equals 314. In Frank Baconist gematria, when you write out 2001: A Space Odyssey, notice how this sums to 314. Again, this cipher based on the alphabetic order but using capital letters. Now, 314 on a clock. Think about 3 hours and 14 minutes. This translates to 194 minutes. And check this out. 2001 equals 194 using the alphabetic order. A Space Odyssey equals 194 in the reverse method. Also notice how both A Space Odyssey and 2001 equals 68 in reduction. 68 is the year this film came out. This film is about travel through outer space, which equals 42. The film was released on the date April 2nd, written 4/2. And in the book version of the film, both the book and film were released in accordance with one another in the same year. In the book, they travel to one of the moons of Saturn. Saturn equals 42. Now, in ordinal, Saturn equals 93. The director of the film, Stanley Kubrick, Stanley equals 93 in reverse. Now, during the film, I couldn't catch a screenshot of this because my rental ran up by the time I tried to, but when they're traveling through space, if you look on the dashboard of the spacecraft, it actually shows 93 and then 226. Well, this film was released on April 2nd, the 93rd day of a leap year, and the numerology, 4 plus 2 plus 19 plus 68, also sums to 93. And again, the dashboard on the spacecraft said 93,226. Now, Saturn, which sums to 93, of course, that's a planet. Planet equals 68, like the year the film came out. Saturn has rings, which equals 68. But also notice how planet sums to 226, just like rings. And they make sure to feature that number prominently. So now let's talk about the monolith. And if you watch the film, you realize this monolith is used as a tool of human evolution, so to speak. The apes touch the monolith, and then in the next scene, the apes figure out how to use tools. So these same apes who touched the monolith end up using tools to beat another ape tribe to death. And what's so interesting about a monolith being used to represent evolution is that monolith equals 43 and 110. That's the same as the word evolution in the same methods, 43 and 110. So after this part of the movie, we move into the future, where humans have achieved space travel. And there's a colony living on the moon in this film. And on the moon, they discover this monolith buried underneath the surface. Of course, when you look at the construction part here with the lighting and the walls, one could say it reminds you a little bit of September 11th, 2001 and Ground Zero. And, of course, the film is called 2001: A Space Odyssey. The 9/11 attacks occurred in the year 2001. Even the sequel of 2001: A Space Odyssey, they called it 2010 to make sure that they still had the number 21 in there. 2010, the year we make contact, has English Gematria of 2100. English Gematria, that's the cipher using the current 26-letter alphabet. And, it's all interesting that this went down in the year 2001 because we had 2 towers for the World Trade Center. After they were brought down, now we only have 1 tower, so down from 2 to 1, 2001. And in the film A Space Odyssey, the first monolith is discovered on the moon, and then there's a mission guided by an artificial intelligence named HAL that takes the crew to a moon of Saturn in the book. HAL, in the alphabetic order, the name of the computer, equals 21. Moon equals 21 in reduction. Saturn, also 21, using the reduction method. Now, the film was released 33 years before 2001. The term false flag equals 33, and it also sums to 156, which is the ordinal value of 33. The 156th prime number is 911, just like how the attacks were on the date 9/11. If you were to flip the number 9/11 upside down, you get 116. The film A Space Odyssey came out a span of 116 days before director Stanley Kubrick's birthday. But here's the real kicker. Now, in the film, Floyd Haywood, which, by the way, is an anagram for Defy Hollywood. I think it's missing an L. But this man docks at the space station en route to the moon. And on this space station, there's a Hilton hotel, right? Well, during the 9/11 attacks, there was a Hilton hotel right next to the World Trade Center. And it's amazing how much this looks like the monolith from the film. Now, in the film, 2001 A Space Odyssey, the computer HAL says he was brought into operation on January 12th, 1992. If you watch the film, he gives his manufacturing date. And January 12th is, of course, the 12th day of the year. Notice how this date had numerology of 15. In reduction, HAL equals 12 and 15. In regards to this being the year 1992, 1992 is the year that this monolith building was opened. This hotel is called the Millennium Hilton. Here you see the Millennium Hilton, New York downtown, opened in the year 1992. So let's backtrack. In the year 1968, we had the film A Space Odyssey released, and it was called 2001 A Space Odyssey. That same year, World Trade Center construction began. 911 was made the emergency dialing code. Also in 1968, George W. Bush, who was president during the 9/11 attacks, graduated Yale University. His birthday is a span of 68 days before 9/11. And then his mom, Barbara Bush, was born on the date 6/8. So again, let's look at the gematria of monolith, 110, evolution, 110. The Hilton Hotel was developed by a man named Peter Calico. In English gematria, his name equals 1010. The Millennium Hilton is located at 55 Church Street. Of course, if you multiply 55 times 2, you get 110. And look at the gematria of the address. 55 Church Street equals 110 in the alphabetic order. 110 is a number that's significant to the original World Trade Center. The North Tower had a 110-meter antenna. Both the north and south towers were 110 stories tall. It was the New York Port Authority, which sums to 110, that helped David Rockefeller equals 110, finance the buildings. They were later brought down on the date 9/11. 9/11 equals 110. And it was Osama bin Laden who was blamed with the attacks. Osama bin Laden, 110. But perhaps the most significant clue, maybe that's a stretch, but one I find to be very obvious. Look at this detail. The hotel was known for many years as the Millennium Hilton. The hotel's builder chose to intentionally misspell the name because he wanted to make it more distinctive. Do you really believe that? Why would you misspell the word millennium? It looks stupid when you misspell it. What kind of businessman would intentionally misspell the name of his hotel like a moron? Oh, wait. It's the Gematria. When you misspell Millennium Hilton, you get 186. And look at the 186th prime number. 1109, like the date of the attacks, 11th of September. Furthermore, the address, 55 Church Street, also equals 186. The phrase false flag equals 186 in English. And this film, A Space Odyssey, was directed by Stanley, which sums to 1086. But let's look one more time at the numerology of this guy, Peter Calico. And this guy, this is the definition of one of the elites, right? Born into a Jewish family. He's now a billionaire. He's a real estate developer. So it's not so much that this guy is a genius and that he earned billions of dollars through his hard work. It's that he was born into this cult, essentially, of elite individuals who are ruling over us by the numbers and laughing at us while they do so. So let me explain to you why this man was chosen to develop the Millennium Hilton Hotel. First of all, let's look at the name Peter Calico in trigonal gematria equals 1199. A Space Odyssey equals 1199 in Jewish gematria. And of course, he's been tasked with building the monolith from A Space Odyssey. Also notice how Calico was born in the year 42. Remember, A Space Odyssey was released on the date 4/2, like how outer space equals 42. Using prime numbers, the name Calico equals 254. And this is significant because September 11th is the 254th day of the year. Now, on the date that A Space Odyssey was released into theaters, Calico was exactly 25 years and 4 months old. Actually, he was 1 day older than that. To be exact, he was 9,254 days old on that same day. When the World Trade Center came down in 2001, he was 3,067 weeks old. Using capital letters, World Trade Center equals 367. Notice how his full name has overlapping gematria with Scottish Rite. Also Saturn, a big piece of the film. More so the book than the film. But in regards to September 11th occurring on the 11th, the name Peter Stephen Calico, his full name, equals 89, which is the 11th Fibonacci number. The 89th prime number is 461. Peter Calico equaling 461 in primes. And this goes further. If you multiply 11 by 11, you get 121. He was born on December 1st, written 12/1. In regards to him being born to a Jewish family, his birthday also has matching numerology with the word Jewish, which is pretty funny. So again, it's the elite segments of the Jewish population that's involved in this. Just because Mr. and Mrs. Greenberg down the street are Jewish and celebrate Hanukkah doesn't mean they're engaging in a worldwide conspiracy to take your money and laugh at you. But there's a chance that maybe their aunts or uncles are engaging in the conspiracy. You know what I mean? The point is, they want us hating Jews so that they have a reason to censor this knowledge, because if this knowledge gets out to everybody, we might have enough people for a little bit of a revolution here in this country. We got 2 more stories I want to cover. The more interesting one is the story about the UFO on the International Space Station. And thanks to everybody for jumping back into my live stream. If you missed it earlier, my live stream got cut. So this is technically part 2 of News by the Numbers for this week. And we'll probably got another 15 minutes or so. Earlier this month, I did a post on the numerology of the first all-female spacewalk, which was to be carried out on March 29th. Well, the spacewalk ended up getting canceled, and the reason given was because Anne McClain's spacesuit was not the right size. And of course, you got to appreciate the irony there. Here we're talking about the first time women are going to be exclusively engaged in a spacewalk, and it's that their clothes wouldn't fit is the reason that they couldn't go. It's really funny when you think about it. And please understand, I use the term women loosely with this pair of people. The woman who did participate on the spacewalk was Christina Koch. And I want to point out that Koch sounds a lot like cock, right? And Christina Koch is not someone who looks like a natural female to me at all. So, and we're being told that this is a woman. Look at these hands. This is a man here, guys. And again, I'm not into the whole transpocalypse thing. Well, maybe I am a little bit. But we are living in a world where the media is feeding us transgendered people on a daily basis. And the reason we see them pushing the transgender agenda into the spotlight is because they want us to accept who they already are. And it's no question in my mind that this Christina, look at the face, look at the jawline, the cheekbones, the hands. Nothing about this says woman at all to me. At all. So, and nothing against transgendered people, it's just that it's unusual. And if this is your choice at birth or younger, then it makes you really weird. And that's just a fact. Anyway, so as I identified in my first post, this ritual was all about the number 227. When you add up the gematria of these 2 women's names, in ordinal, it sums to 227. The 227 is the 49th prime number. And if you measure between these 2 women's birth dates, it's 4 months and 9 days. The date of their scheduled spacewalk was 4 months, 9 days after the anniversary of the launch of the International Space Station. Of course, 22 divided by 7 gives you 3.14. Christina Koch joining Anne McClain on the ISS on the date 3/14, written, well, March 14th, written 3/14. So I identified this as a ritual revolving around the number 227. Well, then Anne McClain had to back out, right? She couldn't do the spacewalk because her spacesuit didn't fit. Also, think about the date March 29th, written 3/29. The 329th prime number is 2207 for another 227 alignment. So Anne McClain couldn't do the spacewalk. And instead, we got another astronaut named Nick Hague. And hilariously, Nick Hague was 2,270 weeks old. Of course, NASA is basically synonymous with the ancient accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry. Oops. Notice how this sums to 227 in the reverse method. It also sums to 187. Nick Hague was also a span of 187 days after his birthday. This spacewalk fell on a date with 44 numerology. If you measure from Nick Hague's birthday to Anne McClain's birthday, whom he replaced, you get 44 months. You also get 193 weeks, and 193 is the 44th prime number. The name Anne McClain equals 44, and he replaced her in space. Space equals 44. As I mentioned earlier, outer space equals 42. The name Hague equals 42. And while Hague was in outer space, look at this. Apparently, a UFO appeared. UFO equals 42. And of course, even this UFO is a bunch of fakery. Just a load of more bullshit from NASA because NASA just can't help themselves from feeding us bullshit on a damn near daily basis. Just look at the gematria of ISS Shock. It sums to 113. Think about how NASA was established on a date with 113 numerology. And the reason why is simple. Dishonest equals 113, so does not honest. Not true, 113. Fiction, 113. Disinfo, 113. What about bullshit? Yeah, another 113. They also put the word frenzy in caps. Notice how frenzy equals 68. On the date of this UFO sighting, NASA was exactly 60 years and 8 months old. Of course, A Space Odyssey released in the year 68. If you measure the age of the International Space Station, see how the space station was launched on November 20th, 1998? On the date of this incident, the space station was exactly 1,062 weeks old. UFO sighting equals 162. So even our bullshit conspiracies are by the numbers. Can you believe it? It's hilarious. All right, so the astronaut that had to back out of the spacewalk, Anne Charlotte McClain, her name also sums to 191. And 191 is the 43rd prime number. She ended up getting replaced by Nick Hague, which sums to 43. Nick Hague is currently 43 years old. 43, also the gematria of UFO spacewalk. And I don't know, is this a coincidence, guys? Nick Hague equals 403 in extended. UFO sighting during spacewalk equals 403 reverse. I don't know. It might be a coincidence, but something tells me it's not. Also look at the Jewish gematria of Nick Hague. See how it sums to 283? This is the same as the gematria of the moon, 283. Notice how Nick Hague, notice how it's listed as Tyler N. Hague. All of these people, not all of them, but a lot of these people who are part of the Masonic Fraternal Brotherhood, who are sworn to secrecy, remember, these Freemasons they take blood oaths and swear to protect one another over everyone else. They don't care about family. They don't care about nationality. They don't care about ethnicity. They don't care about any of this stuff. All they care about is the Masonic Brotherhood. And why would a guy named Tyler Nicholas Hague go by the name Nick Hague and then be abbreviated Tyler N. Hague? It's all about gematria. Tyler N. Hague equals 55 and 866. Metonic cycle equals 55 and 668. The Metonic cycle is the most significant cycle of time related to the moon. It's a period of 19 years that syncs up with almost exactly 235 lunar phases. So his name equals the moon. His other name equals the Metonic cycle. Notice how Metonic cycle equals 127. Hague was born September 24th of 75, which is a date with numerology of 127. His birthday falls 1 month, 27 days after the anniversary of NASA. When the ISS was launched, Hague was 1 month and 27 days after his birthday. Now he's performing a spacewalk alongside Christina Koch. His birthday is 127 days before Koch's. And when you combine their names, Tyler Hague and Christina Koch, it sums to 127 in the reverse alphabetic order. Meanwhile, their full names, when combined, sum to 171. 171 is the reduction value of National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And when Tyler Hague was born, NASA was 17 years and 1 month old. Also, look at how the ISS is said to be moving at 17,100 miles per hour. You know, all the numbers they give us are total bullshit. And honestly, I mean, if I were to guess, if I had to put money on it, I would guess that the ISS is fake, that it's not really up there. I don't know that for sure. I mean, there are people who have taken photographs. Supposedly there's amateur astronomers who have photographed the ISS, like the shadow of the ISS between the sun, but I don't think I believe it, guys. I think it's more likely that the ISS is a bunch of bullshit. Just think about the difficulty in assembling something like this hundreds of miles above the Earth. It's crazy. It's science fiction to me. Just look at the launch date, too, of the ISS, November 20th. November 20th, this date can be written 20/11. And 211 is the 47th prime number. ISS equals 47. The word time equals 47. It also equals 144. And the full name, International Space Station, equals 1044. So I believe that this space station is probably completely fake, and it's just used as a marker for time. But, you know, I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist who's looking at numbers, so what the hell do I know? All right, the last story I want to decode here. Special thanks again to everybody who's chiming in on the live stream. Yeah, as far as the astronauts in the space station, I believe they always give us fakery when it comes to that. I mean, all they have to do is plunge an airplane to simulate no gravity. And when you look carefully, all the astronauts are on harnesses. You see people floating behind. It's all fakery. And it's so fake that I don't even think they're trying to cover it up. I think there are enough mistakes that it seems like they kind of want us to know. You know, it's more of those truth in plain sight things. All right, so the last story I'm going to cover, Icelandic budget carrier WOW Air ceasing operations a few days ago, March 28th. I just want to talk about the date, March 28th. It's written internationally as 28/3. We just talked about 283 being the gematria of the moon. Well, 283 is a prime number. The 61st prime number. Think about how the moon helps us keep time. Time equals 61 in reverse. Well, this story features the cancellation of WOW Air. In the alphabetic order, WOW equals 61. And WOW Air is headquartered in Reykjavik, Iceland, which sums to 61 in reduction. If you remove the foreign character, Reykjavik, Iceland equals 70 in that same method. And March 28th had full numerology of 70. Now, because this story has to do with an airline, we're going to get some 9/11 coding. And even though there was no plane crash, we still get plane crash coding. Now, notice how wow equals 1850 in Jewish Gematria. 185 is the ordinal value of World Trade Center. 185. Now, if you look up the coordinates of the World Trade Center, see how it sits almost exactly on the 74th meridian. The World Trade Center was then brought down on the date 9/11 on the 74th meridian. Well, if you measure from the date that Iceland gained its independence, of course, this carrier headquartered in Iceland, you'll see that Iceland was 74 years, 9 months, and 11 days old. Remember, on 9/11, the World Trade Center came down on the 74th meridian. And there's a lot more 119 to look at. First of all, the Prime Minister, she assumed office on the date November 30th. November 30th falls a span of 119 days before March 28th. Meanwhile, the President of Iceland, his full name is Guðni Þorlácius Jóhannesson, I guess. And his name sums to 119 in reduction. He was born in the year 68, the same year the World Trade Center construction began. His full birth numerology is 119. Wow also equals 119 with capital letters. If you flip 9/11 upside down, you get 11/6. In English gematria, wow air equals 1160. The date 9/11, September 11th, is the 254th day of the year. Reykjavik, Iceland equals 254 in the reverse order. Now again, even though there was no plane crash, the numerology of plane crash still holds true. Notice how in the alphabetic order, plane crash equals 97. Well, March 28th was a span of 97 days before the next total solar eclipse. And if you measure to the most recent total solar eclipse, you get 19 months and 7 days. Again, the number 97 right there. The president of Iceland assumed office on August 1st of 2016, which means he was in office for exactly 970 days. 97 is the 25th prime number. The date of this story also had a life lesson number. Reduced numerology of 25. Sorry, I've been talking too much in this video. I'm starting to misspeak a lot. I'm really hungry, so we're going to take care of that problem after this. Now, notice how in reduction, plane crash equals 43. The date of the story also had a life lesson number of 43. And it was exactly 43 weeks after the anniversary of WOW Air, which began operations on May 31st of 2012. The Prime Minister, by the way, was also 43 years old. She was a month and 27 days after her birthday. And think about how buildings 1, 2, and 7 were the ones that came down on 9/11. So even though the story came out on the 28th, it was actually the 27th when WOW Air announced that the flights would be canceled. This was a date with 69 numerology. And on that date, the Prime Minister had been in office for a span of exactly 69 weeks. Meanwhile, the President, he turned 609 months old just one day prior. Remember, 69 is the value of eclipse. An eclipse is the intersection of the two largest circles in the sky. Circle 69. So there you have it. Yeah. So sorry to anybody who jumped into the stream late, because I am going to be cutting it off right here. Um, I just want to encourage everyone to check out my History by the Numbers section on my blog. And what you'll see on here recently is that I just finished decoding the 13 colonies. What I did is look at the numerology of all 13 colonies and the dates on which they were admitted to the Union, or ratified the Constitution more accurately. And what I do is I take the date that each state was admitted, also the governor of each of these states, and talk to you about how the numerology lines up. And this numerology is some of the most obvious stuff you'll ever come across. It's kind of my belief that way back when, we had no computers or anything like that, so people weren't practicing gematria unless they knew about it already. So they made it a little more obvious, And let's just talk real briefly about the 13th state, Rhode Island. Rhode Island, the smallest state in the Union, was the 13th one admitted. The first ever governor of Rhode Island was named Nicholas Cook. Using the alphabetic order, Nicholas Cook equals 130, just like how Rhode Island was the 13th state. He was born on a date with 13 numerology, 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 7. And if you measure from his first day in office to his last day, you get a span of exactly 130 weeks. When he left office, he was exactly 13 weeks before his birthday. When you write out 130, it's the first number to sum to 227 in the alphabetic order. His first day in office was 2 months and 27 days after his birthday. He died 227 weeks after his last day in office. 227 is the 49th prime number. The name Cook equals 49 in ordinal. When you write out the number 13, it sums to 99. He spent exactly 909 days in office as governor. His first day in office was the 311th day of the year. Rhode Island, the state he governed, equals 311. But to keep theme with the number 13, in reverse, 13 equals 117. His first day in office was November 7th, written 11/7. His last day in office was May 4th, which can be written 4/5. 13 equals 45 in both reduction and reverse. So does the name Nicholas. So that's an example of how crisp these posts are. Just as another example, looking at the 12th state, North Carolina. North Carolina's first governor was Richard Caswell. Notice how Richard Caswell sums to 1224. 224 is the gematria of 3.14, which equals 224. Also 888. North Carolina equals 888, and it became a state 4,888 days after the United States Independence Day. So these are numbers associated with pi. Caswell spent 2 terms in office. His first term ended 3 months, 14 days before his birthday. His second term began exactly 3,104 days after his first term began. And then that second term ended 31 weeks and 4 days after its second anniversary. Caswell would later die on the 314th day of the year. The word pi has gematria of 11. Caswell died 11 days before North Carolina became a state. The 11th Fibonacci number is 89. 11 squared is 121. North Carolina was admitted in the year 89 on a date with numerology of 121. So these are just examples of the coding in all of these states. Again, all you have to do is go to my blog, and if you go to the section by category, just scroll down to History by the Numbers. And on the History by the Numbers page, you'll easily find all my state decodes, which go back to February 8th of this year. So at this pace, it's going to take me a hell of a long time to get through all 50, but I do plan on eventually getting there and maybe writing a little book about it. I think that would be pretty interesting, wouldn't it? All right, everybody. Thanks for checking it in on this Sunday morning. I know it was a little early, but now that it's exactly 10:30 a.m., I figure now would be a good time to end the stream. Again, please like, share, subscribe, and if you do subscribe, make sure your notifications are checked because YouTube doesn't like letting people know when I go live or when my videos are uploaded. And, yeah, I mean, the work has been censored, so it's on us to share this. It ain't going to happen. The YouTube algorithm is not going to help wake up the masses to the language of numerology that's being used to rule over them. All right, guys. Thanks for joining in. Thank you for all the kind words. You know, it means a lot to be able to scroll through and, you know, catch the love on a weekend. Because, you know, my personal life, not many people are catching on to this. Not many people give a shit. Whereas I, on the other hand, realize that this is one of the most important things we could possibly uncover. So, gotta love the internet, right? Bringing us all together. All right, everyone. Peace, love, and God bless. We'll talk to you next time. Adios.